I absolutely love Pixar animated studios, and I don't know if you recognize this, but personally, the question I always have before I watch a Pixar movie is this gonna be another Pixar movie or just another movie? Because there is a difference.
Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture.
What do I mean? Well, Toy Story, for example, feels like a real Pixar movie to me. The Good Dinosaur feels like just a movie. Not saying it's a bad movie, but if DreamWorks did the story, would you notice anything? Then Monsters Incorporated feels like a real Pixar movie, but Brave then feels like just another movie. Why is that? I always find it hard to put my finger on it, but mostly it is how much a Pixar film affords itself to go deeper into the emotion, painful moments in a character's journey. It's not like Cars 2, for example, doesn't have a character journey, but it doesn't feel the need to really put the main character in a very dark or lonely place or whatever the movie needs. A film like that just doesn't think those moments are as important as others, so it moves on from that. A real Pixar movie shines brightest when the characters are hurt, growing out of pain, have their beliefs change drastically. An essay on Pixar is something we can do some other time, but the reason I go into it so much is the question, does this movie, in my opinion, stay true to the Pixar spirit? That was my main question going in, because I felt it could go either way. It wasn't like Soul, where I could tell from the director and the trailer, this is gonna be Pixar, right? Well, hello, fellow Disney Plus watcher. It's nice to talk with you about Disney Plus today. If you love Disney and Disney Plus as much as I do and enjoy talking about it, why not click the subscribe button to stay up to date and give it a like so that more people can find this video. Thanks. This review is fairly spoiler-free.
Oh, thank God.
But if you want to go in completely blind and didn't watch the main trailer, because full transparency, I didn't, then you'll learn a little more about the themes and some of the early beats of the movie, but no real spoilers. Turning Red follows Mei, a 13-year-old girl growing up in Toronto, trying to be a teenager and a good daughter at the same time, balancing her school life with her friends and her duties and responsibilities at home. One day, she discovers that she turns into a red panda whenever she gets too excited or emotional, and now carries the burden of the need to suppress those emotions. Otherwise, she'll expose herself. For a moment, I thought we would see a heroic story coming out of this movie that's about living two lives, two identities, like Peter Parker's Spider-Man.
Spider-Man got away!
But very early on, and again, I won't go into real spoilers yet, but very early on in the movie, it became apparent, nope, this movie is planning to do something a little more special than just another secret identity story. Because early on, Mei reveals herself to her parents as the red furry monster that she is, and learns it's a little mystical quirk in the family that has lasted for generations. And it's something every member of the family has to deal with. So now Mei has to find a way to live with it, control her emotions, and try not to make a scene every time she freaks out over tickets from her favorite pop band, or gets angry at one of the bullies making her out for a mama's boy, which she kind of is, by the way. I found it interesting that the movie introduces Mei as a character that does have both sides of her life under control, and is enthusiastic about hanging out with her friends and hyping over boys and music and just be a geek and do chores around the house, be there for her mother, caring about the family, etc, etc. So in a way, I had to get adjusted to this movie because I felt like what the red panda represented fit really well with her life outside of home and her friends. The more outgoing, reactive, enthusiastic, playful side of Mei. She seems to have that side of her under control already in the beginning of this movie. So when the panda thing happens, it's not that this side of puberty is now suddenly creeping up on her. So I feel like in the introduction of the movie, maybe it would have worked a little better if we saw a different side of Mei. But the first act of the movie did really hit hard in my opinion. The movie is actually pretty dark at first, and that caught me off guard, and I didn't expect that. The turning into a red panda symptom is first treated by everyone around Mei like it's a disease. Very early on in the movie, Mei gets moved out of her room to sleep in an empty spare room to sit out her phase of craziness. We see the scratches of the nails on the walls, and the movie just feels dark for a moment. Mei is trapped inside this mental prison. She tries to stop natural emotions. She hates the panda and is embarrassed. And that part of the story really worked. The whole red panda allegory is a personification of allowing passionate emotions coming through, and ultimately the inner beast coming through. I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? Well, the movie didn't treat it like it was a lazy gimmick. It worked. The whole change Mei is going through makes her so vulnerable and insecure, and that is why it's extra painful when Mei finally reveals her other side of her new self to her mother, this extravagant red panda, her mother explains to her that this side of her is an inconvenience, and she wants to help Mei suppress it and essentially get rid of that side of her, the inner beast. It's not something you can live with, she says. You have to lose it. Mei's mother sees her changing daughter that way. Over the course of the movie, we see Mei discovering that this side of her was inevitable, bound to happen. Puberty hits, you know, it's part of life. The movie carries a great message that expressing yourself and discovering yourself is necessary and exciting at times, but also messy, embarrassing, and inconvenient. And that's just the way it is. The antagonistic mother, which is of course very Disney-like to have the mother almost be a villain to the child's goal reaching full potential, and Mei's mother is not wrong in this film about what it means to bear the burden of the red panda. It's just what you do with it, how you deal with it. And as in every great tale of mother-daughter, father-son, father-daughter, mother-son, it doesn't matter, the parent learns more from the kid than the kid from the parent. Because that's how life works, right? If we grow old, forget the youthful wonder that is the passion of life, you know? And one of the roles that our children have is to remind ourselves of that, to have that mirror in front of us, right? It sounds like I know what it's like to be a parent. I'm 21 years old, so I don't. But moving on, the movie overall is very enjoyable. Awesome animation, as always. Pixar's great, especially in the first act of this movie. There's a lot of playful elements thrown into the frame that help support little jokes here and there, although there weren't many jokes, but I'll get to that. It kind of reminded me of all the comic booky elements of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Wait, is that your second Spider-Man reference? Yeah, it is. I know. I love Spider-Man, I don't care, except I didn't like No Way Home. Unpopular opinion, getting off topic. And Pixar's attention to detail is amazing. There's a moment someone taps a glass to get the attention, and the little vibration in the water is so unbelievably realistic. This movie should have been in theaters, but I made another video about my frustrations there. That's for another time. Let's keep going. The music is really great, but why wouldn't it be? I mean, probably the most interesting up-and-coming composer right now, Ludwig Göransson. He did the score, and the best way to describe his music in general is that he can combine the most drastically different of musical genres and styles, and you still feel like you can't tell where the, in this case, Asian instrumentals are starting to blend into the straight hip-hop elements and vice versa. I mean, in his Mandalorian scores, he manages to put heroic melodies, dubstep, western, and samurai scores into a blender, and sometimes even within the same tracks, but it's so seamless when he writes music. This score is not his most ambitious thing ever, but it does a great job, especially in the earlier parts of the movie, of supporting the split life Mei lives, the life she lives for her mother, and the life she lives at school with her friends. The tunes are undeniably hip-hop and pop inspired and supported with breakbeats and punchy bass, but the score also never loses sight of Mei's roots, which are represented by the Asian music, and there's a lot of cues in this film that are combining the two. Now for some negatives. This movie is playful and very light in tone, but I have to say I only chuckled a few times during this movie. It didn't have any big laughs, except for the after credits scene. To be honest, it's a bit of a shame.
What a shame!
Again, it's a very fun movie regardless, so I guess it depends on your taste of humor, but I felt like there wasn't a ton to laugh here. I also didn't like Mei's friends as characters. I liked what they represented in the narrative, but they were really stereotypical. One is always angry and looks like a grown-up, bitter version of Agnes from Despicable Me. The other doesn't seem to care about anything at all and speaks like this and is bored all the time, like a robot.
Wow, look!
I'm a computer.
And it felt like the most dishonest character of all of them because she doesn't feel like a real person. And the third one is the more neutral, level-headed voice of reason. I guess the four of them together represent 4 types of emotions or something. Like Mei's all positivity, the other is angry all the time, the other doesn't care, and then the fourth one is just level-headed. I mean, I guess they were going for something like that, but like showing us the group of friends is inseparable because they complement each other, but I just didn't like them at all.
Hello, Liza.
Also, the turning into a red panda is by the end of the movie a messy formula. It's not consistent. I felt multiple times in the movie like this is the moment you would be turning red, Mei, and nothing happens. She does learn to control her temper more and more during the film, but still it didn't add up, and ultimately she begins to turn herself into the panda on command whenever she likes. Like the writing there was a little wonky. I also think that in the third act they start to spell out the moral of the movie a little too much, where it becomes a little too heavy-handed. It's always a fine line, because even though the mental health commentary in this movie does feel a little dark, I do understand the filmmakers feeling the need to explain for the last time what it's about, but it felt a little much. Maybe the third act in general is a little on the weak side. I mean, there's something that involves twerking, and there are a few questionable choices about how it all wraps up, but nothing major. Turning Red does feel like a Pixar movie, and I felt that during a scene between Mei and her father, who speaks very little during this movie, but when he does, he's a voice of wisdom, man. I loved his character, and the fact that he says so little in this movie makes when he speaks all the more amazing. His character is actually my favorite character besides the main character Mei, and you don't expect that when you start watching this movie. And what does the red panda represent? I loved one thing I found on a website that delved into the symbolism of the red panda in Asian culture, and this is from whatismyspiritanimal.com. So that's a really reliable source. I have no idea. It says, if red panda comes to you as a spirit animal, it's during a time when you need a retreat. Perhaps your world has turned into a whirlwind of tiny barbs threatening to fracture you to the very core. Red panda suggests finding some place for unwinding, regrouping, and rediscovering contentment. There's no set amount of time here. Healing is essential. This is a great way to describe the story of Turning Red. I have problems with the movie. Some characters are a bit lame and two-dimensional, and the third act isn't as satisfying as it could have been. The movie's own rule on when to turn into the panda doesn't make sense by the end of the movie, but I loved the setup of the story, how it progressed, the painful mental prison Mei finds herself trapped in. The music is all great, and Mei's father is a surprise standout. He's one of the reasons I will declare this a true Pixar movie, right? Just go see it, it's good. I'm thinking about wrapping this up. Thank you so much for watching. I'm curious, what did you think of Turning Red if you've seen it already? Be sure to let me know in the comment section. Did you like this video? Then there's a simple way to show support. Thank you so much. If you want to know my thoughts on the fact that this movie didn't find its way to theaters, which angers me, but on Disney Plus, and how that could be a long-term problem, check out this video. For now, have a wonderful day and see ya.